Good evening, America. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the latest edition of Just the News, Not No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you, as always, from the nation's capital and the wiredtofishcoffee.com studios. Wired to Fish Coffee is the official coffee of Just the News. By the way, they just made this brand new tumbler mug. It's really amazing. You can go get that plus coffee and get 10% off by using the promo code JustNews when you go to wired2fishcoffee.com. That's wired, the number 2, fishcoffee.com. Go check them out. Go support them. They make this newscast possible. All right, we have more for you on the accountability around the 2016 Russiagate hoax. To start the show this evening, as the FISA court quietly ruled that the FBI and DOJ can review FISA warrant intel that targeted the Trump campaign and then help release documents that have never been given to Congress. This is a brand new treasure trove of documents. It's part of the work of FBI Director Kash Patel to hand over more Russiagate evidence to Congress. And I think when we look at it, we ought to look at it from this perspective. They're not just looking at whether John Brennan gave a false statement in some testimony to Congress. They're now beginning to zero in on whether what began in July of 2016, when John Brennan walked into Barack Obama and said, hey, we have intelligence that Hillary Clinton's going to hang a fake Russia shingle on Donald Trump's campaign house, that was the beginning of a conspiracy that may have continued all the way through the raid at Mar-a-Lago and up to and including the testimonies in 23 that are now being called into question when John Ratcliffe released all of that explosive information last week that really seems to suggest that John Brennan wasn't telling us the truth all along when it came to the Steele dossier, the Intelligence Committee's assessment, and so much more. That story, go check it out over at justthenews.com. Jerry Dunleavy and I teamed up on that, but it is such an important moment. These documents include Congress getting their hands on, for the first time, a lot of information that was in a classified annex of the Justice Department Inspector General report that first acknowledged that the Russia collusion investigation was, well, outright bogus. All right, in other news, it seems judicial overreach has not been beaten yet, no matter how many times the Supreme Court rules on it. This time, it again deals with President Trump's immigration policy. We have another judge who has blocked President Trump's birthright citizenship executive order. This despite the Supreme Court finding just last month that lower courts likely lack the authority to issue sweeping injunctions. Well, U.S. District Judge Joseph LaPlante just went ahead and issued another injunction saying that the Supreme Court ruling didn't apply to this. He had a loophole, and he was going to implement it that way. Go check that out at justthenews.com. It's a pretty extraordinary story. Another great moment to have in the show, we get to bring in my amazing co-host, Amanda Head, right now. Amanda, you got some other headlines you've been watching all day.
Yes, indeed I do, John. But how about the Department of Health and Human Services banning illegal aliens from accessing benefits from the agency? But my question is, why was that happening at all? Why has that been happening at all? Well, there's actually an answer to that. Ever since 1998, HHS has been using an interpretation of a law, the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act of 1996, to allow illegal aliens to take advantage of some federal public benefits. That is according to the press release that HHS put out to announce this new move. So earlier today, HHS formally rescinded that interpretation, allowing them to ban illegals from getting those taxpayer-funded benefits. HHS Secretary RFK Jr. released a statement saying, for too long, the government has diverted hardworking Americans' tax dollars to incentivize illegal immigration. Today's action changes that. It restores integrity to federal social programs, enforces the rule of law, and protects vital resources for the American people. And I would bet that you are wondering what those taxpayer benefits the illegal immigrants had access to were, right? Well, here are a few. Access to behavioral health clinics, mental health services, health workforce programs, a grant program that helps the homeless get off the streets, guardianship assistance, and family planning programs, just to name a few. And how about this story that's been trending over on justthenews.com all day today? There is new evidence that the COVID vaccine could accelerate pancreatic cancer. The research comes from Japan at the Miyagi Center, the Miyagi Cancer Center, where they were studying why cancer survival rates had declined in 2022 and 2023 after years of survival rates increasing. Now, the researchers ended up finding what they say is a statistically significant connection on the number of mRNA shots taken and how quickly those patients ended up passing away. And the research also concluded that just taking the primary shot and one booster is associated with poorer overall survival rates in patients with pancreatic cancer. And of course, there are plenty of doctors out there who dispute the study and its results. So we're going to see if their conclusions are replicated elsewhere or not. But John, this is something that a lot of people have suspected for a long time, not necessarily specifically with pancreatic cancer, but just with overall health.
Yeah, and I had a friend share that story on LinkedIn. LinkedIn censored them.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
Wow.
censorship is still alive and well, despite all the efforts of
Boy,
Mike
oh
Benz
boy.
and Jim Jordan. So, all right,
Yeah.
let's turn to our first guest. We've got a great first guest to talk about all the issues today, whether it's what HHS did or what Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins did earlier this week. She represents the great state of Iowa. She's one of the great voices of common sense in Congress, Congresswoman Marinette Miller-Meeks. Congresswoman, great to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
It's great to be with both of you again.
I want to start with the Bobby Kennedy announcement today, a pretty big moment, a 30-year change in policy or 27-year change in policy that illegal aliens aren't entitled to get federal benefits from the HHS. Seems like common sense. It's very popular when you look at the polling, but it wasn't the rule of law at the HHS for the last 2.5 decades.
It does seem that it's very common sense. I mean, it's one of the things that incentivizes people to come here illegally. When our system acknowledges that, I would fully expect that this is going to be a court case and go to the Supreme Court. We've seen this before happening with illegal immigration and benefits that are intended for citizens, but going to illegal immigrants. And it's one of the things, remember the Biden administration famously having the Vice President Harris to determine the root causes for illegal migration. Well, this may be one of those root causes for illegal immigration.
Yeah, great point. The big incentive.
Absolutely. Congresswoman, my fear is that this is not a flash in the pan. If this wasn't caught by Doge, thank goodness it was caught by RFK or some of his associates, people who had a magnifying glass and they were checking this stuff out. But I fear that this is happening all over government and we don't even know to what degree it's happening or where. How can we find this out so that we can stop it? Because this is millions of dollars worth of taxpayer money.
Yeah, I think your point is valid. One of the things that Doge uncovered was because of the algorithms that they put in place to detect things. They actually weren't looking into classified documents, but just into the payment system. Certain algorithms put in place were able to uncover payment systems. If you try to go through all of the different line items, it is extremely cumbersome. We're doing that. We try to do that. But having that assistance through a computer algorithm really helped Doge to uncover some of these, egregious, erroneous payments. So I think that you're correct. There is more beneath the surface. We're going to keep digging. We're going to keep trying. We're going to keep requesting documents. Judiciary, and you mentioned Jim Jordan earlier. Representative Jordan and Judiciary is doing a great job on that, but it really takes a whole of government approach. And I think under the Trump administration, what you're seeing is that there is a whole of government approach to both illegal immigration, but how we spend money, where we spend money, and what behaviors are we incentivizing through either our tax code or through benefits that are provided to individuals, and how we fund nonprofits and what exactly those nonprofits are doing.
Yeah, so very important. Today we're reminded once again of the ever-encroaching China threat on our soils. Several Chinese illegal aliens arrested in a marijuana operation follows after some scientists were trying to sneak in pathogens to the country. You talked about the whole of government approach. This week we saw the Homeland Security Secretary, the Agriculture Secretary, the Defense Secretary, and other cabinet secretaries all working together to start to protect farmland from Chinese purchasers or other bad actors in the foreign markets and begin addressing the threat of agro-terrorism, a whole of government approach on a problem that's been persisting or growing, but the Biden administration hadn't dealt with it. I want to get your reaction to what they did this week.
Well, I think it is precisely something that need to be done. No one has forgotten the balloon that traversed all the way across the United States, finally shot down once it had actually went over all of our sensitive military facilities, including our nuclear arsenal sites. I mean, it's unreal that this Chinese spy balloon was able to traverse the entire United States from the Aleutian Islands to South Carolina over sensitive facilities, and nothing was happening as far as stopping it. It could have been stopped over the Aleutian Islands in a sparsely populated area. So I think we have been certainly in Iowa. This is something we have looked at when it comes to purchasing farmland. Who purchases it? Is it near a military facility? And are they taking trade secrets? We know that China has an agricultural problem. They can't feed their people. And so they rely upon the United States. But this is absolutely something I think was the right thing to do. And it did take this whole of government approach looking at multiple different facets, and is something that should have been done under the Biden administration when it was known that this was occurring. So happy to see this happen. It's one of the things that in Iowa, Representative Randy Feenstra and the rest of us were all on the bill to stop the sale of farmland to the Chinese Communist Party.
Pretty important.
When it comes to obstacles that these cabinet members are going to face, and even to some degree states attorneys generals and governors who were already down the road on this before this administration even came around, as far as the obstacles that they face, are we talking Chinese nationals, the people who are trying to buy the farmland, or people, I mean, Americans who are trying to push back against it? And if it's Americans, why?
Well, you can understand if it's Americans who are working with individuals, but there needs to be clearance, there needs to be guidance. We need to do what's in the best interest of the United States, and our agricultural segment is one of those. We already know that the Chinese Communist Party doesn't respect intellectual property. They don't respect patent rights, and so you don't want all of the money and investment that has gone into agriculture to make us leading as far as crop productivity, whether it's corn, soy, whether it's livestock, whether it's management of livestock diseases. There has been just a ton of research, money that's gone into research, money that has gone into development. And these things are protected under patent laws and intellectual property laws in the United States. And we know that the Chinese Communist Party doesn't respect intellectual property laws. They haven't before in the past, they haven't now. And so one of the things you can do is to strip them of most favored nation status as far as a trading partner. Yes, it's a big market. We want access to that market, but we can also develop other markets, which is one of the things that happens in the Farm Bill, is to develop other markets, other potential for crops, and new markets, new products that can be sold. But I can tell you, it was farmers over a decade ago who told me about the egregious practices of the Chinese Communist Party, whether it was currency manipulation, whether it was refusing a shipment of either grain or other agricultural products, livestock products, beef or pork, letting them go rancid, sitting in ships, and then refusing them after they had held up delivery. And so these practices are egregious. It is not fair and free trade. And the United States needs to put a stop to that. And that includes the purchase of farmland, especially farmland that is near military installations.
Yeah, so very important. Congressman, before we let you go, just a couple of weeks ago, the Supreme Court was pretty clear that there wasn't a grounds for federal judges to issue injunctions against the birthright citizenship case. And then a judge just went and did it again today, saying, I'll just call it a class action case to get around the Supreme Court ruling. I'd like to get your reaction to what that judge did and this sort of sentiment that these district judges don't seem to care what the Supreme Court's telling them right now.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing is activist judges. It's one of the things that we have talked about, and that the Trump administration is acting upon, rightfully so. And I think you're finding ways for district judges to exceed their authority, to go around what is constitutional law. And as you said, the Supreme Court already ruled on this. So there will be another Supreme Court ruling, I'm quite sure, on this. And it will come up with the same ruling as the last one, that these are judges that are overreaching their authority. So constitutionally, I think that there is ground for the president to proceed on this. There are those who look at the Constitution who indicate that it was never meant for people to come over here and give birth, for non-citizens to give birth, and then for there to be a lineage of birthright citizenship. So this is something we absolutely need to look at. And I think the Trump administration is right to look at this and determine what is it that the Constitution actually says and what was intended by our founding fathers. So I think, again, what we're seeing are judges that are going beyond the scope of what they're permitted to do. And I expect that we'll see a smackdown by the Supreme Court once again.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Congresswoman, it's a great honor to have you on the show. I know you're home, and people say, well, during summer break, what do lawmakers do when they're home? They do a lot of work. They drive hundreds of miles and meet with constituents. I know you were doing that all day today, and yet you found time for us. I want to thank you for doing that and for joining us on the show.
You're welcome. Recess is not vacation.
That's exactly right.
You're not out on the playground. You're traveling your district, and we've been all over our district, had a fabulous change of command ceremony at Rock Island Arsenal today.
I love it.
County fairs. Got another county fair to go to tonight. It's county fair season in Iowa before the state fair kicks off in the first week in August. So It's a lot of fun.
I did a lot of state fairs in Iowa, and it is definitely something everyone should do once in their life. It's a great thing. The Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us. Great honor to have you on. All right, folks, we're going to talk about the shocking rise of anti-Semitism in America and what can be done about it to stop it with Florida Congressman Randy Fine right after these messages. Hey, folks, you might be wondering, when's the right time to start adding collagen to my diet? How about today? Collagen production starts to dwindle in your 20s, and by the time you hit your 50s like me, it's decreased, and it contributes to wrinkles, sagging skin, and joint discomfort. Now, Native Path Collagen can help. It's packed with only type 1 and 3 collagen fibers, the ones your body needs most for healthy joints, for healthy skin, bones, hair, nails, and also, believe it or not, your gut. Plus, it's third-party tested for purity and with no fillers, no additives, and no artificial junk. That's important to me. 2 scoops a day of Native Path delivers 18 grams of protein. Mix it into your coffee, your tea, your soup, or any drink. It's completely flavorless and easy to use. Right now, you can get a special bundle deal at the fraction of the retail price. Plus, you're going to get free shipping. Available at getnativepath.com/justnews. That's getnativepath.com/justnews. With over 4 million jars sold, thousands of 5-star reviews, and a 365-day money-back guarantee, this is your moment to take control of aging before symptoms get worse. So go to getnativepath.com/justnews right now. Supplies are limited and demand is surging. That's getnativepath.com/justnews.
Welcome back, everybody, to Just the News, No Noise. President Trump is still working very hard on peace in the Middle East, but as we all know, what goes on in the Middle East can and often does affect us here at home. Take, for example, former President Joe Biden's very porous border. We know terrorists ended up entering this country while the border was wide open. We've also seen the very quick rise of anti-Semitism across this country in only the last 2 years. So joining us now is one member of Congress who is looking to do something about all of this, Congressman Randy Fine from Florida. Congressman, welcome back to the show.
To be here.
So, I think that we have often had conversations on this show about CARE for our Audience Council on American Islamic Relations. Terrorist group, I think by all outward appearances, but finally something is done on the floor of Congress to make sure that that's made clear. Thank you, sir. Tell us about it.
Well, I've filed a bill to name CARE as a terrorist organization. So people understand CARE masquerades as basically the NAACP for Muslim people, and they deserve a group to do that. But what CARE really is an organization funded by the Muslim Brotherhood, founded by the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas affiliates to basically serve as a PR front for Muslim terror in the United States. And they do the most heinous things, including announcing after October 7th that they were happy that 1,200 Jews have been killed. So my bill calls a spade and says they should be designated as a terrorist organization. They'd lose their charitable status. So we're actually paying for this as Americans, and it would make clear. I did this in Florida actually last year, where Florida declared CARE a terrorist organization. But now I want to bring that national.
Yeah, so important. The rise of anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism is so extraordinary. It has really boiled. It was obviously 10 years, 20 years in the making, but it's hit this flashpoint. And then we end up with a mayoral candidate in New York City who's likely to be the city's next mayor in our biggest city in America, who espouses all the things that we're trying to teach our children or what you're not supposed to believe in. Your thoughts on what the Mamdani candidacy is doing for the country and what it means for the Democratic Party?
Well, I think it's the result of 20 or 30 years of infiltration. This has been a strategy to fund Muslim terror in the United States and to facilitate immigration in the United States. We focus a lot on illegal immigration, and we should. We need to deport every illegal. But the fact of the matter is we've also made a huge mistake on legal immigration. We should not be allowing people into this country who hate it. We should not be allowing them to become citizens. And this is a problem that we have created over the past several decades. And I say we, I think the Democrats, Barack Obama and others, this was part of their design to bring these kinds of people into the country. But now we are where we are. And Mandami would be a disaster. I mean, he's not just a socialist who would destroy the economy of New York, but he's a rabid anti-Semite who does not like Jews, will not say globalize the Intifada, which is a call for violence. He will not disavow that. So he'd be a disaster for this country if he were to be elected.
Absolutely. And it oftentimes seems like it's a word game with them. They do a lot of funny things with words. Especially in the case of Mamdani, he refuses to really spell out what it means when you say from the river to the sea and globalize the Intifada. When we're playing such risky games with language, I mean, honestly, it's not really a surprise that we ended up here, is it?
Well, it's because a lot of the media lets them get away with it. They're laughing at us when they say that. They know exactly what they mean when they say from the river to the sea. It is the genocide of Jews in Israel, it is the destruction of Israel. They know exactly what globalize the Intifada means. And we have seen it in this country in the past couple months. We saw it in a terrorist attack on a Democrat governor in Pennsylvania who is Jewish. We saw it with Jews being burned alive in Colorado, and one just died. We saw it with two Israelis who were shot here in Washington, D.C. because of who they are. And for a guy like Mandami not to say globalizing the Intifada is illegal, he doesn't say it because he supports the Intifada. And God forbid the Intifada were to come to New York City. He's got to lose, and we've got to do everything in our power to make that happen.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary moment for New York City these next few weeks, and we'll see how it plays out. Sir, you are doing some very common sense things. A lot of people say, wait a second, these things haven't been done in the past, and the answer is no, not until you got involved. You've got two pieces of legislation that I really like. One is taking a look at the failures that have occurred with terrorist screening and terrorist watch lists. The second is creating some harmonization in our sanction strategy. Talk about those two pieces of legislation. They're very popular and they're very common sense.
Well, the one about the watch list. So we've got sort of 6 terror watch lists that are out there, 6 different ones. And why we have 6 is a great question, but we do. And this bill basically says if you get on one terror watch list, the other 5 people putting terror watch lists together should be notified. And then an investigation should be done about whether it should be added to theirs. And if they're not going to put them on the watch list, they should be reported back to Congress. And so, that's what that bill does. And I can't think of any reason to oppose it unless you like terrorism, I guess. And so we're optimistic that it'll move through the process.
Yeah, good idea.
And we were just talking to Congresswoman Marionette Miller-Meeks about redundancy in Washington and so much of the crossover. And that, frankly, that is how, she was talking about the whole of government approach, but frankly, that's how a lot of this waste, fraud, and abuse happens. But also the redundancy that you are precisely talking about with these multiple lists. How do we reduce all of that down to just one source for a list, one source for this and that, one agency to cover it?
Well, we have to do this in general. Look, we are spending trillions of dollars a year that we don't have. And we need to use that as an incentive to say, we've got to make government more efficient. DOJ was working on that. They made some progress, but we have a long way to go. And I think once I get these 6 watch lists, it working together, then the question is, how do we get to one? But how do we do that across the board with government agencies? The fundamental problem is this. It is easy to create. It is easy to spend money. It is easy to hire people. It is not easy to fire people, to cut, to end, because people accuse you of being mean. And as we saw with Democrats when we were passing the one big beautiful bill, they'll just stand up and say people will die. I mean, I'm sure they'll say that if we cut 6 terror watch lists to 1, people will die. Everything with them is people will die if you cut the government. Cutting the government is a harder thing to do. And so this has gotten where it's gotten over decades of fiscal mismanagement. Getting it refined down to where it makes sense is not going to be easy, but we have to do it. The government is just too big. It never should have gotten this big in the first place, but we are where we are. Now we've got to do what we have to do to make it smaller.
Yeah, just common sense. That's a great idea. So real quickly, before we let you go, we keep getting new signs of China's infiltration and harm to America, whether it's the marijuana conspiracy that was rolled up by the FBI today, the agro-terrorism a couple of weeks ago. The Trump administration took some pretty bold actions this week to take on agro-terrorism, getting Chinese scientists out of the country who don't belong here. Your thoughts on whether we're finally turning a corner and taking the China threat seriously, not just talking about it, but actually doing things?
Well, the president's clearly doing things about it. What people need to understand is China thinks it's at war with us. We're the ones who don't think we're at war with them. And so much of what happens from the Chinese perspective is meant to destroy our country. There's no better example of that than TikTok. TikTok in China doesn't work the same way it does in America. We actually found, for example, that in Florida, the rise in boys thinking they were girls, that was all being driven through TikTok. Again, that's China's effort to destabilize our country. So I appreciate President Trump standing up and saying, we're not going to put up with this. We're going to make these changes. China should not be buying farmland. China should not be buying anything near our military bases. We've got to take the China threat seriously because it is a serious threat. And I appreciate President Trump for doing what he's doing.
Yeah, no doubt.
When you just simply go from the mentality of Joe Biden thinking they were competition to what President Trump sees them and you see as a threat, I mean, it changes everything. It changes how we look at them. It changes how we treat them. And the proof is in the pudding. Congressman Randy Fine, thank you so much for being with us again tonight, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right, everybody, coming up, a few of the most accurate pollsters have joined up to create a new polling association, and we're going to talk with one of those members, Rich Barris, from Big Data Poll, about what inspired it. Next.
Hey, everybody, have you heard that in April, China significantly reduced its American Treasury holdings to the tune of $8.2 billion? And it could signal what's coming. China is now third place among foreign holders for the first time since 2008. But this is bigger than just China. Foreign central banks are systematically moving away from the U.S. dollar while stockpiling gold at unprecedented levels. They understand what most Americans don't. A collision between Trump and Fed Chairman Jerome Powell is inevitable. Powell's term runs through 2026, giving him extraordinary power to resist Trump's economic agenda. With $36 trillion in national debt and interest payments consuming more than our entire defense budget, the mathematics have become unsolvable through traditional means. That's exactly why our friends at American Alternative Assets created the urgent new guide, Fed versus Trump, the coming battle for America's financial future. This guide reveals the Fed's most powerful weapon against any president and shows how everyday Americans can protect their retirement savings before this showdown destroys unprepared portfolios. The smart money isn't waiting to see who wins. Call 855-GOLD-340 or visit my website, johnlikesgold.com. That's 855-465-3340 or go to johnlikesgold.com. Get positioned before the battle begins. Welcome back, America. As you know, I've been talking on the show for about a year. I think it would be great to create a new White House Correspondents Association to challenge the legacy media one. I haven't gotten a taker in the Trump White House yet. I've tried, but I haven't found the interest in it. But I'll tell you what, some of the most accurate and smartest polling people that we bring on the show did exactly that. They had created a newly founded National Association of Independent Pollsters. I love this. One of the men behind it, the director of the Big Data Poll, and our good friend, Rich Barris. Rich, good to have you on the show.
It's great to be back as always. Thanks, John. Amanda, thanks for having me.
I love this idea. I think this is perhaps one of the greatest moments in polling in the last 15 years. The polling industry has forgotten about accuracy. They really don't care, as we learned with the Iowa poll, the fake Iowa poll late last year. This is an opportunity to institute some standards and common sense and reward the pollsters who get it right.
Yeah, I think that the polling industry has evolved a lot, right? And as it has, so have the standards and methodologies that we all debate. And that debate has a place, John, but somewhere in it, it really just got lost upon us what our true value is to the American public, to elected officials, which is our ability to accurately assess public sentiment. And without the ability to do that, you know, the George Gallup's vision falls apart, right? So why would any lawmaker listen to us? Why would voters trust the results that are being printed in the headlines? And unfortunately, it hasn't been. It's been an adversarial environment to some of us who have done a very good job. And that's because the same thing you deal with in media, we deal with here. It's a club. and they want that club to remain. They want to be the the members of that club and those who dominate it. And it's sad because accuracy gets lost in all of that, and it's the most important part.
It's exactly what's missing from the legacy media. Accuracy. You're
Yeah.
exactly right. You hit it on the head.
But honestly, isn't that the biggest part of their problem? Because you've got you guys, you independent pollsters who are held to your own standards. You don't have anyone influencing you. Isn't the whole problem that they are a part of a club and therefore they have the club's influence on them?
That's it in a nutshell. I mean, they have their associations, and they have the associations that are sisters and child-like association charities. And in order to keep them all in that club, they raise money for it, and they dole out speaking fees. And if you want to be on the list who gets an invite to this event or that speaking fee, then there's a certain behavior expected of you. Even the university polls, who do you think is funding their grants? They're not. It's not the American public. It's not the center of the country. I mean, these are people who have interests, and we have to drop the charade and stop pretending as if the people who do these who fund these projects, whether it's media or in the university space, they have political views and they have agendas. And obviously in the last 10 years or more, even before the Trump era, we were struggling. The polling industry was struggling. Exit polls blew some big elections. Bush v. Kerry was one of them. I'm old enough to remember, right? And that is because there's been a lot of problems beneath the surface. You have methodological problems and you have ethical ones. And someone has to be there in between to be a standard that says, look, there's a group of people out there who have done a good job. You can trust their numbers, and there has to be an organization that identifies them and then cherishes that accuracy breeds trust. And without that trust, the industry's worthless. It's pointless. It's actually harmful. It could be harmful.
Yeah,
so
it's proven to be harmful.
It's about time.
Yeah, no, it's great. All right, so you're in on this. You got three brethren that are kicking this off with you. Tell us who the others that are in on this.
All right, so Matt from Insider Advantage, and he's been working with Robert Cahaley at Trafalgar for years now. I mean, these guys have done a great job. Rasmussen Reports, Mark Mitchell over there. I mean, these are people who have, and this is part of the criteria for membership. You can't just have a one-off election, and you have to have a track record, a published track record of accuracy. Everyone's going to get it wrong, right? But I do think that the founding members of the organization, those four firms, including ourselves at Big Data Poll, we've been doing this for a while. And you're going to have some polls that are just, it happens. That 1 out of every 20 is supposed to be an outlier. But if you have a proven track record over the years of accuracy, there's a reason for that. It means that person and that organization knows what they're doing, and they're also not they're not compromised that for anything. Now, there's no price in the world, John, that's worth how much people trust you and how much the faith that they put into you to get things right. So that's who it's starting with. There will be open membership in the future, and we will do that. But for right now, those are the four. And I'm honored to be with them. They're all great names, and they've all done great work.
And you got a great title. I already have to call you the People's Pundit, the Big Data Poll guy. Now you're Mr. Chairman, right?
That's right.
You're Mr. Chairman. I like that title.
That's right. It's got a good ring to it. That's for sure.
does.
I'm going to have a bunch of names by the
Does
end.
it feel like herding cats though?
Yeah, some we might not be able to put in there.
A little bit, but that's okay. Again, I really do feel like this idea is it's about time, right? We should have had this already. There are other countries and other self-governing societies. They have different industries. In Canada, the polling industry is different. In several European countries, it's different, right? So there has to be an organization that at least gives people, points them in the right direction, guys. Because as we have grown as an industry, I have a little saying that I repeat a lot, but it's true. There are just too many polls and not enough pollsters. And the public is being flooded. Congressmen and women are being flooded with all of these numbers and inundated. And the truth is, not all polls are created equal. And we have to acknowledge that. And this is the first step in that direction.
I love it.
All right, before we let you go, Elon and his third-party idea does it hurt Republicans? Does it hurt Democrats?
Well, I think it's a little too early to see. I'm not sure Mr. Musk understands the Herculean task of creating a new party in the United States of America. Go ask the Libertarian and Green parties. Good luck getting those signatures. But there is, it's interesting that he chose the America Party, because there is research to suggest that Certain names do peel away some lower propensity voters from the right. However, there has to be a party platform, and I'm not sure anybody really understands what that is yet with him, and it's going to take some time to develop. There may be some contradictory positions. I'm sure there will be, as we have seen with other third parties. Honestly, this country has a long history of people trying to do this. It doesn't work out for a reason. I think that if your hope is to influence policy or steer the ship in the right direction, you have a much better chance of doing that by reforming a party from the inside or creating a movement from the inside, like President Trump has done, than you are starting a new party. You'll end up being a spoiler, and people don't like spoilers. It gets very old quick, and you wind up disliked by both sides.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Right,
that's a
Ralph
really good
Nader?
point. Yeah,
Right.
Ralph Nader.
Poor
that's
Ralph
right.
Nader.
Ross Perot. Yeah, it didn't work.
Ross Perot.
Yeah. Rich, it's a great honor always having a show. We love what you've just done, and we love the new title, National Association of Independent Pollsters Chairman. Thanks for joining us tonight. We'll have you on again real soon.
All the best, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Take care.
Great stuff. All right, folks, after the break, one of the ways President Trump is trying to make America great again is by keeping American companies great. We'll talk about that and how well he's doing with it right after these messages.
Welcome back to Just the News, No Noise. President Trump is attempting to make a lot about America great again. He's making America beautiful again. He's trying to make government great and smaller again. And he's helping to make our economy great again as well. And one of the ways that the president is trying to make our economy great is by helping to make American companies great too. And our next guest is also trying to do the same. He is the president and CEO of American Beverage, a group that advocates on behalf of the American non-alcoholic beverage industry. Kevin Keene. Kevin, great to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Amanda. Great to see you.
All right, so I hear this talk about how the American beverage industry it kind of epitomizes the American dream. It is everything that President Trump wants to see propagated throughout industry. Tell us about it.
Yeah, we're a great American story, Amanda, in that we're American companies. We make American products with American workers in America's hometowns. And that's not just a saying. I mean, that is who we are. And it's who we're going to continue to be in the future. So as the president is seeking to build a stronger economy, we think we're delivering on that vision for the president and for all the hometowns and communities that we serve across America.
Yeah, it's pretty important. And you're delivering more than that. You're delivering a lot of dollars to the economy. I think it's like $400 billion a year in economic activity in the United States and almost 300,000 jobs, right?
Right, John. And I think what's key to that is the type of jobs our bottlers are providing. First, if I just pull up for a second, we're actually a system of companies. Yeah. Some people might presume that, Coke and Pepsi and Keurig Dr. Pepper are just one big company, but they're actually a system of family-owned bottlers in communities across the country. Mm-hmm. And those bottlers are the heartbeat of our industry. They provide great paying jobs, the type of jobs the president's actually been talking about, the type of jobs where you don't necessarily need to have a college education. Certainly some jobs require that, but you don't need to have it. And they're good paying, family supporting jobs where a person can put down roots and grow in a community and raise their family. And we're proud of that. And our employees stay with our companies throughout their careers for that reason. And so it's the type of jobs and the type of contributions we make that we're just as proud of, including the fact that our companies make $4.8 billion in charitable contributions collectively in America. So we really are part of our communities that we serve.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. That's
I
huge.
remember in middle school, I went to Buffalo Rock, which is an iconic bottling facility in Birmingham, Alabama, and it was such an incredible operation to see, especially, as a young American, seeing the machinery and everything. It was amazing. I want to ask you, though, about the movement to end SNAP benefits for things like soda, because it's good for the American people, but possibly bad for industry. How is that going to work out?
Well, look, our biggest concern about the SNAP restrictions, Amanda, are that they single us out. If there's a concern about added sugar or about the SNAP program in general, address the program. address everything that has added sugar. We think when you single out just our industry and our products, that's unfair, and that's an unfair knock on those jobs I just talked about, on those workers I just talked about, and the products that we make here in America. So we're looking, as much of anything, is for kind of a consistent application of whatever goal lawmakers are pursuing. And that's our biggest concern. We understand, look, we want to make America healthy again, too. We're very much invested in that. In fact, we've done so much work over the last 15, 20 years in the product innovation that you can see in the beverage aisle, that we've actually reduced calories in the marketplace by 42%. So we're making a gigantic impact on the calories and sugar in the marketplace. So that innovation is the type of free market innovation that I think is going to accomplish some of these goals much more successfully than restrictions and mandates, especially such narrowly drawn ones.
Yeah. There's a trend line that they call, I guess, the functional beverage movement, and it means that we're just looking for healthier, more unique things. That is a growing, booming part, and your industry's leaning into it, right?
400 products out there, more than 400 products out there, John, have zero sugar.
Yeah.
Now, I think a lot of people are going to automatically jump to the diet and zero sugar sodas.
Right.
But this goes well beyond those. These are the sparkling waters, the still waters, the hydration drinks, the zero sugar sports drinks, the teas, the energy drinks that are zero sugar. A whole plethora of innovation that our companies are developing and taking to market. And John, they're putting their marketing dollars behind it.
Yeah.
And that's what's getting people to try these products and take on these products and consume these products. In fact, 60% of the beverages Americans buy have zero sugar. So just think about that. 60% of what Americans buy in terms of our beverages have zero sugar. I don't think there's another industry that can come close to matching that type of innovation and transformation. So we believe we're doing a lot to answer the bell on helping do our part on some of the health concerns being raised. In fact, we're also helping with transparency and information so you can help discern what kind of beverage you might want. We just launched a website called goodtoknowfacts.org, where we take all the ingredients in all of our beverages and put them in one easy-to-use site that the consumer can now go to find out what type of products that ingredient is in, what names it might be called, included in Europe and Canada, and its regulatory status here in the U.S. as well as Europe and Canada. So basic core information for the consumer to help learn more about what's in our products.
That's huge. Goodtoknowfacts.org?
Yes.
Yeah,
I love
should
it.
bookmark that. Check
Before
that
we
one
let
out.
you go, I want to ask you one other thing, because when we talk about the health sector, there's also another concern a lot of people have these days, which is plastic. So that's another value of buying these products that are bottled here in the United States rather than a product that comes in plastic from China or Mexico, because you have no idea if they are complying with no BPAs, no PFAS. It's a really good thing when you buy it here in the United States and it's American made, American bottled.
That's right, and that's why we need to keep building those strong supply chains here in the U.S. too, and support the president's efforts on that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Kevin Keene, President and CEO of American Beverage. Thanks so much for being with us tonight, Kevin.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Great conversation.
All right, everybody, coming up after this, a few final thoughts before we head out for the night on the other side of this break. Welcome back, everybody. Just a few stories to close out the evening. One of them, Zohran Mamdani has landed an incredible endorsement, a guy who used to back Cuomo in the New York City mayoral primary. Rep. Adriano Espelay is backing the far-left candidate, and this is a guy who could become the first Muslim mayor of New York City, a guy who espouses some insane economic theories.
The Muslim part doesn't bother me as much as just what he stands for.
Yeah.
I mean, the leans into communist principle, the lean into hatred and anti-Zionism. He admits he's an anti-Zionist. I mean, I think that means he doesn't believe that Israel has a right to exist as a state. the affiliations with some really extreme people. The Big Apple, which is the financial center of the world, will stop being the financial center of the world if he becomes mayor, because companies and executives are going to leave and they don't want to be part of this. And so New York's got a big decision. I still think that a Republicans plus Eric Adams, Republicans plus Black voters coalition in a plurality race, Eric Adams might be the surprise winner, particularly if Como were to get behind Eric Adams and create a counterbalance. So
it could be incredible to see, because
keep an eye on that.
I mean, New York City is one of those cities. It has definitely gone through some seasons.
Yep.
Obviously, prior to Rudy Giuliani, you had areas like Alphabet City who were,
That's right.
I mean, basically no-go zones, and then Rudy came along and cleaned up the city.
Yeah, right.
And now, you know, it definitely is not back to where it was in the 70s.
Nope.
But it ain't good.
Yeah, no, it's not. And I think there's so much more that we're going to learn. He isn't fully vetted yet. He's had a pass, and we're still learning things about what he said, what he did, who he hangs out with, where he gets his money from.
Jerry's done some great reporting.
Yeah,
on
it's
that.
Jerry Dunleavy's done some great reporting. We should get him on the show. Yeah, there's more to be dug, but this is a real moment of consequence for New York City. This isn't just your normal, we got to elect a Democrat. You are making a decision that the entire world will have to process, depending how the outcome of the election is.
Yeah. Something else that the world has to process, the fact that this recent study showed that COVID boosters correlate with worse survival rates for cancer, with third most deaths. Terrifying.
It's a Japanese study.
Yep.
The COVID sensors are back at it today. As I told you, a friend of mine shared this story, excuse me, on LinkedIn, and he got immediately taken down. This is a debate that people don't have, but this is real data. We should be allowed to talk about the data. We can disagree. People can come more times. I don't believe it, but we shouldn't need to censor the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so President Trump has announced a 50% tariff on Brazilian imports over Bolsonaro trial, and the only import I know about Brazilian is something the Kardashians have done on their backsides, and I'm sorry for laughing about it, but that's all I can think of about it.
Not going to go there. Yeah, no, you got an Irishman to blush on that one. Thank you. No.
Oh yeah, I told you should have worn more
That
makeup.
was not in the script. I just want to point that out. That was not in there. All right, well, that's fine.
Yeah, but President Trump really hammering down on a lot of these more nuanced tariff relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, the next few weeks are going to be pretty consequential in the trade market. But here's the thing. Tariff revenues are going up in America.
Yep.
Inflation is still going down.
Yep.
The economy did not get roused by the Trump economic strategy. In fact, it's
unemployment going
moving
down.
up. We're seeing 5 straight unexpected months of good employment. We're seeing inflation in check, energy prices down. Congresswoman Miller-Meeks said that energy is becoming a really dominant part of the economy again, which always drives everything else. All the scare tactics and fear tactics of the left and the legacy media haven't come true once again.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that we are seeing come true, and that is the pipeline between legacy media selling a certain story and agenda about ICE agents and ending up in tragedy and violence. And here we have again more ICE agents in San Francisco dealing with masked protesters. We have seen this in instances across the country. And, John, to me, what's amazing to me is that there are so many Americans or non-Americans, young people, whoever they are, who think it's okay to assault federal law enforcement. When I was their age, I would have been terrified at the prospect of that. My parents would have said, "You are who you hang out with," and I wouldn't have been caught dead near them.
Yeah, well, there is a generation of children. We talked a little bit about this with Congressman Fine. There's a 20-year radicalization of young people. And so these young people think what they do when they shoot mortars or fireworks or throw bricks at a president as they're in a video game. They're not. They're injuring and harming people who we're supposed to respect. And the only way to deal with this is to do like Texas just did, which is charge those people who attacked the ICE facility and charge them so hard that they ain't getting out again.
Yep.
You want to do it? We'll just run you all into prison. We'll just make bigger prisons, and you can hang out with your Trend to Agua friends and others and see what you think about it on the inside when you see how they really act as gang members.
Well, it should start before that. It's cultural. I remember a video during the George Floyd riots, a video that went viral of a mama dragging her son away from a protest, and everyone was cheering her on, and that's where it's got to start.
That's real America.
Yep.
I mean, that's real America. But there's going to have to be a crackdown. There has to be a consequence for this. There's been no consequence for George Floyd Ford. The first time we're seeing it now is the Trump Justice Department.
No, and we still aren't seeing consequences for Black Lives Matter and
Nope.
the millions that they stole and used
That's
to
right.
buy houses and security systems
Yeah.
in Malibu. And
There's consequences ahead, though. Keep an eye. There's a moment of consequence coming ahead.
I certainly hope,
I'm certain of it.
it's an
Yeah.
era of law and order. So let's hope we do.
John
get to
Brennan
see-
seemed a little more nervous this week.
He sure did. He sure-
There could be consequences
I'm
there.
shocked, by the way, that he just keeps lying.
He said
I'm
he's
so.
clueless, right? Or something like that.
All right, everybody. That's all we have time for tonight. Thanks for being here.